Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bootcamp. Today is Saturday, and today we'll be doing we'll do some practical work today on how to use TypeScript with React. And what we'll do is we'll build a quiz app. We'll see how much we can get done in today's session. As much as possible, I'll try and get through. So today it's just going to be me and you. So Zeeshan and Ziasa will not be joining today. So let's get this started. I'm going to start with my screen share. All right, so here we go. What we'll do now is, before I start, let's go to the PanaCloud GitHub repo and okay, sorry about that. So we go to class number 15, 16, something like this, 14, 15. And then we have the project number 6, the quiz app with React and TypeScript. So what we want to do here is we want to, let's see, open this link here. And we can get a demo. Okay, so this is kind of the application we want to build. So it's a quiz app. There's not much. It's a very clean looking app. So note that at the beginning, we only have a single button, a title, and just a background image. So when you click the start button, it will give a score, a starting score of 0. Makes sense. And then it comes out with this component here, and it says, okay, we're on question number 1 out of 10 questions. So it looks like we have 10 questions in this quiz, and it shows which question we're currently on. Then it gives us the question, so the text of the question, and then it gives us like a multiple choice selection, so we can basically figure out which answers are available, and then we pick one. Let's see, I think Ziasa joined us. Hello.
Hello, hi everyone. Hi everyone.
Hi. Do you want to add anything, or should I just keep going?
No, just keep going.
Yeah, so it shows the question we want to build. This is being fetched from an API called Trivia DB. So Open Trivia Database. And what it is just an API with a bunch of questions. So you can get the API from this tab here, and you can configure it as you want. So we just wanted 10 questions, and then it gives you the category of questions. So you could pick any category or general knowledge or whatever. And then you have a difficulty level, so easy, medium, and hard. And then you can select the type of questions. You can have either multiple choice or true and false. The app we're building is all multiple choice.
Adil, I think there's sound in the background. Your fan is running.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, that should be done now. Okay, so then we have the multiple choice or true and false type of questions, and we want only the multiple choice questions. So as you see, and then so that's what we would be selecting, and then the encoding, I think we don't really need to worry. We can just leave it as default, and then we can do generate API URL, and it would give us a URL that has our API configuration. One thing to note here in this URL, let me show. We have a basic the URL up to here .php, and then after this question mark, we have the different key values. So we have for the questions, the number of questions, we have an amount, and equals to a number. So we can configure the API from the URL as well. So to adjust the number of questions, we can replace the number 10 here with our desired number of questions. Similarly, the type we chose multiple, so that's why it gave us that. But we could also, like, maybe if we select these different options and then generate the URL, it would give us all the different options here. So amount, category, difficulty, and type. Okay. So either we can come here, generate the URL from this form, or we can build out our own URL. Right. So we have that. And that's pretty much it. When you select the answer, it would show the correct answer in green. If you get it right, you'll have the only the correct answer in green. If you click the wrong answer, it'll show that as in the red color, and you'll know that it's the wrong choice and which was the correct answer. And then you'll be able to select the next question. Note the next question button only appears once you make a choice. So these are some difficult questions for me, guitarist. So that's all it is, and then you just click through the different questions that are available, and as you see, the score is also being incremented. And then at the end, once you've hit the last question, you will no longer get the next question button. You will get the start button again. So that's it. And then once you hit start, it will again load the new questions, and you'll be able to start again, starting from 0 score again. So that's what we're trying to build using this API. Okay, so let's get started. What I'll do is I'll open up a terminal window. And make this bigger so you can see it. Right. Okay. So I'll navigate first to my GitHub repository. So that's in my documents GitHub folder. A bunch of projects here. So here, what I can do is, so what we want to do is create a TypeScript project with React. And we've been using the npx create React app. So we can continue using that and then use a template with TypeScript. So what we'll do is npx create React app. We'll give a name. So we can say quiz. And then say minus minus template. And here we'll say TypeScript. Yeah, so what it'll do is it'll create the React application using TypeScript. And this will just take a minute. Look ahead to other things we also might need to do. Yeah, so once we have the project started, we also want to install styled components. So the UI that you see here, it's using the styled components. So we'll also install this as soon as our app is up.
Adil, what
Yeah.
difficulty did you face when you were using TypeScript?
Not that many. I was getting it mostly. I wasn't really having difficulty. I was finding it nicer because it was giving me a lot of help in the code editor. So I wasn't really having any issue with it.
Therefore, it is for you. It was beneficial.
Yeah, much more beneficial. Because normally we have to code it, and then when you open it and you get to the runtime, that's when you see the error, or you see that you missed something. But here you were able to get the help in the code editor directly. So what issues did you face when you were using it?
I prefer it much more
Yeah.
than because I'm coming from Java. So therefore, in
Okay.
JavaScript, I don't like JavaScript that much, to be honest.
Yeah.
I prefer Java because the main thing is intelligence inside code editor.
Yeah.
And
You
I'm
get a
not,
much better environment with this, right?
yes, and I'm not very good at remembering the APIs. So therefore, it helps me a lot.
Yeah.
The good thing about TypeScript is that it will even help you getting married.
Why? How is that?
Well, I'm not married. Otherwise, I would told you what are the benefits. But other married people have told me.
Oh, okay. So here now the project has been created.
Mhm.
Actually, I'll go to my quiz project. And so here you can see all the TypeScript configuration files. Now I can also install the npm install, styled components, styled components, and we'll use add types / styled components.
What is this style components?
We're using it in this example to create the UI
Okay.
element. So just doing it now so we don't have to do it later.
These style components are just like a material UI or something else.
Yeah, it's kind of like material UI.
Mhm.
Okay, so once this is done, the next step we'll do is, we'll also add the React DOM, because initially I had trouble with the React DOM, so I had to save that as well. Need some background music, maybe.
Mhm. Just to save time,
Yep.
let me go over what the future plan is.
Sure.
The thing is, after we are done with React and Gatsby, then we will move over to Gatsby. And once we have moved over to Gatsby, after that we will move to the server side. I've been working very hard myself in preparing for the classes, which will start in maybe 15 days, 2 weeks time, which will basically teach you how to develop global level internet scale applications. Applications like Facebook, which have unlimited scalability. And the other issue I was facing is that most of our students do not have credit cards. So therefore, what I want to do is create a serverless applications which has both global and which are global applications which are unlimited scalable. And at the same time, you do not need a credit card to start developing on it. So therefore, I have been developing courseware for it. And when we go to that point, all of you will understand that new kind of database, new kind of serverless functions, and coupled with Gatsby on the client side. So this is going to be of tremendous value to the students. Is it done?
No, still working on it.
The second thing is, up to now, we have been using Surge to deploy applications. The good point about Surge is that it is the requirements are very simple. It is very easy to use. Now, as we go forward, we will start using Netlify. And Netlify services are more comprehensive. It also provides server-side components, that is server-side Lambda functions, which we can use. AWS functions are implemented in Netlify without any credit card, or without, most of the time for the beginners, it's free of cost also. And we are going to use, I'm a little bit Adil, confused with the name, FAUNADB. How do you pronounce it?
FaunaDB?
FaunaDB? Yes.
Yeah.
So FaunaDB, we are going to also start using FaunaDB. And on the server side, it will be AWS Lambda functions, but without AWS, because in order to register for AWS, you have to basically have a credit card. But we are going to use Netlify, and to deploy it, we are going to use Netlify CDN, which is a very fast CDN. So therefore, these three things on the server side, and basically Gatsby on the client side with React. So therefore, it will give you tremendous value. And those students who want to create their own company can immediately start creating global level companies which has a reach and which are highly scalable applications.
Almost there.
Mm-hmm. So therefore, the whole idea is to develop developers which are basically full stack developers, both on the client and the server side. This is going to be our first stack, which is the simple one. And later on, we are going to use Google and AWS also later on in the part 2 of the server side applications. But that is going to be later on. First, we are going to use Netlify, FaunaDB, and Gatsby.
It didn't take this long before when I ran it. So
It doesn't matter. Because right now we are also using the CPU and networking, and networking load is there.
yeah. I need a new machine now.
Mm-hmm.
The ARM computers are coming out next year.
Yes, yes,
I'm just gonna wait for that.
yes, yes. You buy 2 of them and present one to me.
Yeah, yep. If only Apple did a buy one get one free, right? Okay, so here we go. Styled components is installed now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's clear out of this. One more thing I had to install when I was running this earlier. It wasn't picking up React DOM, so I had to install. What was it? Save at types React DOM. This one.
Everybody has to understand, basically these types, what they do is they help you in intelligence. Therefore, whenever you are using a JavaScript library, it acts as a bridge between TypeScript and JavaScript, because JavaScript does not have types. Therefore, basically what you do in these types, you define an interface for the JavaScript libraries which you are using, so that the Visual Studio Code can give you intelligent help, which you will see soon.
Yeah, because when I was running it without this library, it wasn't really picking it up in the TypeScript, so I was getting errors. So then I installed it and I was finally able to get it. Okay, so let's get out of this. So open up my folder, quiz. All right, so here we go. This is our folder that we're working with. And what we'll do is we'll clean it up a little bit here. There's a lot of extra files. So app.css, app test index.css, logo, service worker, and setup test. We don't need any of these. So I'll just delete them. Leaves us with just a couple of files now. And what we'll do is we'll go and clean them up. So if we can start with the index.ts, we don't need any of this. We don't need this, and we don't need this, and we can get rid of the service worker like that. And then in the app tsx, so these are now not JavaScript files. Now these are TypeScript files, which has a TypeScript code in it. Here we can get rid of the logo, and from our text we can maybe we can just say quiz app. Okay, so that we can get rid of app.css. That cleans it up. Now we can move forward and we can start working on our components. Let me also start running this app in my browser. So I'll do yarn start. Actually going to open it in my Chrome. So while that's starting, we can continue ahead. Let's create a folder for our components. And in our components folder, let's create a new file. And we'll call this the question .typescript. Okay. So this is going to be the component that has this data. Okay. Still starting the server. There we go. So okay, so we have our app running, and we have our question card TypeScript document ready. Here what we'll do is we'll create a React functional component for question card, and for now we'll just put a placeholder text here for the question card. And then what we can do is we go back to our type app.typescript, and here now what we can do is let's start putting our content here. So in a heading, we can put quiz. And then what else do we need on this page? We wanted the quiz. Then we needed the start button. So we want a button. And we'll give it a class name of, let's call it start. And this button, whenever we click on it, we want it to execute some function. So we'll do on click, and it should execute a function called we can call it start quiz. So that's going to be our button, and inside the button we can just put some text like begin quiz maybe. And oops, what happened? Yeah, so this as you see, we cannot find the start quiz function because we haven't really created it yet. So we can create the start quiz function. I can come up here, and here I can say we can create a constant start quiz, and this will be a asynchronous function, and it'll be an arrow function. And for now, we'll just leave it blank, so it'll compile at least. So we'll have our button to do the begin quiz. Now that we have our begin quiz button, the next thing we need on our page is our score. So we can have maybe a paragraph. We can give it a class name and give it a score, and these we'll use for styling later. So score, and put the text here. So now we have our score. Next object we need on our component is yes. So what we want to do is whenever this app starts, and if we click the start button, it should say like a loading kind of message. So we just need a little placeholder for loading this, and then we also want to get back our component. This component, we want to display it as well. So question card component hasn't been imported, I think. So it says it's not defined. Let me auto import. Now it should be fine. The auto import makes it come here. So now we have our question card as well, which has been imported. And one more thing we need is another button. Need another button. And the purpose of this button is to do the next question. So we'll give it a class name. We'll call it next. Then also this button needs to execute a function when we click this button. So here we'll call a function called next question. And this button now we'll just put some text that says next. And see, this is the benefit of TypeScript again. So now we have to define the next question function. So similar to how we defined the start quiz function, we just need to have another one here. Next question. So now we just put some like placeholder functions. They're not doing anything right now, but it makes everything work. And then make sure. So I have a button for next now. So all of our different components are here on the page. Everything we really needed. Now, what we want to do is we want to start working on our question card. So let's go to question card. Close out this one. You can go to question card. Make this a little bit bigger as well. So what we need is to have the properties of the question. And to get the properties of the question, what we need is everything that it's going to have all the properties that we need to make this functionality work. So what we'll do is in our question card function, actually before our question card function, what we'll do is declare the types of the properties. So we'll do type, and this is our props, and it'll have an object, and inside of it we'll have all the different properties. So we'll have one for the question. So the question will be like this question, which is a string. So here we're defining all the types. Then we have answers. So all our answers are going to be, so we have 4 answers for each question. So this should be an array, and it'll be an array of strings. So we have like this. Then we have a callback. The callback is going to be used with our promises. So we'll have a data type for now. We'll just put any, and then we'll have something here for user answer. This is going to be the answer, whatever the user selects, which is just going to be another string. And then we have, okay, the question number. So like this, which question we're on. So this will be like the question number, or we'll just leave it like this. And this will be a number type because it's a numerical value. And then we'll have the total questions, which is also a number, which you can see here. So these are all the different properties that are being used in our question card component. So we have here listed them out along with their types. Okay. Now what we'll do is we'll turn this into something more than what it is now. It's going to be a type of React.functional component, and we're going to be passing it these properties. This. So now through TypeScript, we have made it explicitly be a type of a functional component, and we've passed in these properties. Now, what we want to do is use these values inside of our function here. So what we'll do is we can destructure them out from our props like this. And all we have to do is just go through each of these. So answers, callback, so we have user answer, question number, and total questions. So these are all of our properties now destructured, and now we can use them inside of our question card component. And so what we can do now is inside of our return, we can, instead of having this text, what we'll do is we'll start using these property values. So as you see here, we need something that has like which question we're on and how many total questions there are. So we'll have question like this, and then we want to show the current question we're on. So the current question is the question number. So that we can get like this, question number. So this tells us the current question number we're on, and then we'll have like a slash, so it tells you out of, and then here we'll call the total questions that are available in this quiz. So this will give us an output kind of like this. And what we can do is, instead of having it in the div like that, we can maybe close it into a paragraph. So now we have this done. Let's keep going. We also want to display the text of the question. So the text of the question. So to display the text of each question, what we'll have to do is we'll have to um, go through a map of all the questions that have been fetched from the API. We haven't fetched the API yet, but we'll do this in a moment. What we want to do here, though, is map all the answers and all the questions here. So first, we'll put the question. We'll display the question. So for that, we'll call a paragraph. Okay, and here what we have to use is a dangerously set inner HTML, which will allow us to set the value of this paragraph element through the JavaScript. So it's the dangerously set inner HTML, and we use this. We set the value. What we'll do is inside of a object, we'll call the underscore HTML uh, and set the value of question question from our properties. So this will get the question and then set it as the inner HTML value of this paragraph, and then we can make this into a self-closing or self-containing paragraph element. So that will take care of our question. Now for the answers, we have to map through a array of the answers because it's a array of strings. So for this, now we want to do is we can create a div element, and within the div we want to map out all the values. So what we'll do is we'll do answers dot map. So answers calls the answers in our question properties, and we're mapping through it like this. So for each answer, what we want to do is call a function, and within it we want to create a div. So there we go, like this. And now we have a div for each of the answers that are available in our array of strings. Okay, so now inside of this div element, what we want to do is have these little buttons that the user can click on to select which answer they're selecting. So here we'll create a button element. Just create the button element, and within it, what we want to do is have the value of the answer printed inside of the button. So here we're creating a span element, and the span element, similar to how we did the dangerously set inner HTML for the question, we're doing the same thing for the answer. So dangerously set inner HTML equals, and here we'll do HTML, and this will be the answer. This, and then we'll close the span. So like this, and now to make this button be usable, what we want to do is give it a on-click handler. So we'll do on-click, and whenever we click on this answer, what we want to do is get the callback. This. What's wrong? No, that's fine. This, and then one thing I was missing, disabled equals user answer. save. So now we have this button. It's ready to go. It's the same. User answer string. Okay. So what I have to do is, for now, I'm gonna make this any as well. There's a type issue. There we go. That gets rid of that error. Okay, so now we have our button created for the answers as well. We still haven't really, this isn't going to work right now because we've called all these properties, but we haven't fetched the API yet. So we'll get back to the UI once all of the components are ready. So that's all for the question card component for now. Now what we'll do is we'll go back to the app component. And here what we'll do is we'll start creating state using the state hooks for each of our different values that we need. So here we'll import useState. So this will help us to use the useState hooks. And now that we have this, we'll want to establish all of our different state objects here. So I'll start doing this inside of the app function up top. So we can do, we want to have this functionality. So when we load and we start the quiz, it shows us like the loading stage. So we want to have a state where we can make the UI be responsive, that it's loading the data, so it'll have a message. So it's not appearing as if something is stuck and not responding. So we'll set a state for loading, and then this will be the value of the variable, and then we'll have the function we use to update the state. And this will be, we'll be using useState, and the initial value for loading will be false because initially it will not be loading, because it only starts loading when we click the start button. That's when it starts loading. So initially it's set to false. Then we'll have, we need some state hook to keep all of our questions data. So we'll have something like this, questions, and a function to update the questions, set questions, and then useState, and then the initial array. So this is our state for the questions. Then we need some other object, another state hook, number, and then set number. And then we can do useState. Initially, we can have it set to 0. So that will take care of our question number state. Now we need another state for the answers. The answer the user is providing. So for this, we'll have user answer, and then set user answers will be the function, and then useState will have an empty array at the initial outset. And we also need to maintain the score, so we'll have state for score, and then set score, and then this initial value of the state will be 0. So that's this. And then yeah, one more thing we need is to, how do we tell the, how does the app know that the game is in progress or the game is done? So we need another state for game over, and set game over. And we'll have useState, and the initial value will be true because the game isn't really on, so it's game over initially. once the game started, once the user hits the start button, on our app, it's going to be the begin quiz button. It will set the game over to false because the game will be on at that time. So that's that. Now, what we want to do is we want to pass in the properties to the question card component. Okay. Here. So inside of this question card component, we want to display the different data. So let's do this. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so here what we want to do is we want to start giving the properties that will be being used by the question card. So we start with the question number. So the question number we're using here. So we have created some state and we set the initial value is 0. So what we'll do is here, question number, we'll define it with number because we had initialized it here with 0. So we want it to be number plus 1. So that when it first starts out, it'll be the initial question will be question number 1. So that's why I will do a plus 1. Then we want to have for the total number of questions. What we want to have is maybe we store the value of the total number of questions into a variable, maybe a constant or a variable. We can make it into a constant, total questions. This will have the number of questions. Right now we're targeting 10 questions, but if we change this value here, we'll be able to dynamically update the value throughout the application. So we've set the total questions to 10. And now what we want to do is use the value of this constant in our component. So here we'll say total questions equals total questions, like this. So now this value is 10 and TypeScript shows us. Okay, so that's the total questions. What else do we need? We need the questions. So we need to get the question from the array and the state. Okay, so we have to get the question. This is the question that's going to be displayed inside our question card component. So this is something that we have to fetch from the API, but we haven't fetched it yet. So there's going to be some error here, but we'll ignore it. And it'll be fixed once we do the API call. So we're going to get the question from our state, and then we're going to get because it's an array, we'll get the number. So it'll be the number we're on because of the index value. So it'll be question at index number. And because number, we set it to 0 at first. That's why we set it to 0 instead of 1, because we can use it as the index for iterating through these arrays. So now we have question number, and then we want to get the question value from this here. Is it questions or is it it's questions? Questions. So okay, so this is not this isn't there because we haven't done the API call yet. So let's ignore this for now. It'll be fixed. Okay, so that's our question. Then we also need to get the answers. So the answers are going to be, we'll fetch them the same way. So they're also in the questions object. And then we'll again go at index based on the number, whichever number we're on. And then here we'll call the answers. And this, again, it's not visible to TypeScript right now. Okay. Now what we also want to do is the user's answer. Okay. So this is the question we are going to get from the API. This is the answers that will be given in the API, so whichever values are possible. We also need to get the users, whichever value the user selects. So whichever the user clicks on, that's the value we also need to save. So we have a history of what the user had been selecting. So user answer. Here we'll do user answers. And here it's in our state. So if the user answers is available or not. So if it's available, we'll do user answers number. That means if the user had selected an answer, so it'll be true. That's why there'll be a value in our state for the user selected answer. And then we'll be selecting whichever index value will be in that array, because the user answers is an array. Oops, it's an array. Okay, so that's this. And then if the user has not selected an answer yet, we're just giving an undefined value here. Okay. So that's that. Okay. Now, somewhere along in our question card component, when we click on the answer, we're calling this callback. And what we want to do in our question card component here is when the callback, this should be calling a function which will check if the user's selected value is correct or if it's incorrect. So that's what we've done here. Now this is underlined because we haven't yet created this function. So we can go and create the function to do the check answer. I created all the functions here, so I'll create another function here for check answer. Now, when this function runs, we want to run it based on the event when the user clicks. So we'll trigger the event, and it needs a type because we're in TypeScript. So the type will be from React. It's on the mouse event, and the mouse event is on a HTML button element like this. This kind of gets us the type from the event. Basically, we're getting the mouse event from a click on a button in HTML. And then this will be a arrow function, and we'll just leave it like this for now. So we have a function. So the callback check answer is working fine now. So we've done everything we needed in our question card component. We've defined all of those values and passed them into our question card. Now the issue is that we haven't really gotten the data from the API yet. So let's go and do this now. So it looks fine here and here. Okay. So what we want to do now is we want to call this API. We want to call this API and get the data so we can start working with the data. So what we'll do is let's go to our source folder. We can create a new file. Let's call it api.typescript. So now in this file, what we want to do is we want to fetch the data from the API here. So what we'll do is export, and we have to get it back into our app folder. So we'll do an export const, and we'll do fetch questions. So we're creating this function. This will be an asynchronous function. Now, in this function, we have basically we're going to be querying URL API. So what we want to do is we want to build out the URL dynamically. We could just copy paste this, but it's a bit more interesting doing it this way. So within the asynchronous function, we're going to be giving it to the values of whichever things we want to customize. So if you want to customize the number of questions, we'll input the number of amounts of questions. And if you want to have the difficulty, we'll have the difficulty settings there. And if you want to have the type of questions as well, we'll have the type as well. So here in the asynchronous function, we'll give that we're basically creating these parameters here. So amount, and it needs a data type, basically a type in TypeScript. The amount will always be an integer value because it's a number. So we'll call this number. And then we also want to get the difficulty setting. So this is difficulty. And the difficulty is just a string. But one thing that was interesting, they did this in the example, so I'll do the same thing as well. Instead of having the user be able to provide a value in the code and it be messed up, what we can do is have enum type for difficulty. And this will restrict us to certain values that are acceptable in the API. So the API only accepts these 3 values. So in our enum, we'll give these 3 values as the only possible settings. And the data here, it takes it in as lowercase, even though here it says differently. So the API URL is in lowercase. So what we want to do is have this text is in lowercase here, like this. Medium. And hard. So this will create our enum. And now we can use this here. Okay, so like this. So I think it's compiling. Oh, sorry. No, it's fine. So we've called the asynchronous function, and we've given it these parameters which will be needed as inputs, and we'll call the arrow function. And within this fetch questions now, what we want to do is we want to build out the URL for the fetch, something like this. So here we'll have the call it the endpoint. Now this, we want to build out the API URL dynamically using these values. So inside of this, we can use these backtick marks to build this URL. And then the URL, the front part of it, this part of it is the same for always. So we'll just hard code this. Now inside of it, we want to dynamically set the amount and the difficulty. So here to set the amount, in the URL, we can see its amount equals and the value. So we can put the amount equals. Now here to get the value from the parameter, we'll do $. and curly brackets and get the amount, right? And then we use in the API here, you can see after the value, we have an ampersand sign. So we'll have an ampersand, and then whichever value also we want to get. So we also want to set the difficulty. So the difficulty here, see difficulty equals. So we'll do difficulty equals. And then again, what we want to do is set the value dynamically using our parameter. So here we'll do $, curly brackets, and then inside of this, we'll have the difficulty. This. And last, we also want to get the type of questions. We want to get multiple choice questions only. This we don't really want to give the user a choice, so we'll just say type equals multiple. This, right? So zoom out again. Is it too big? So this is our endpoint has been built, and then this we can end with the semicolon. So now we have the enum and we have the fetch questions. We can go back and now inside of our fetch questions, what we want to do is get the value and store it into the value from the API, and we want to store it in somewhere we can access. So we'll do const data. So we'll fetch the data from this API URL, and we'll save all of that data into this constant. And when we assign it, we want to get the. So first we want to await fetch, and we want to fetch from the endpoint. So like this. And then the other thing we also want to do is we want to get the JSON data. So we'll do await again, like this, and then the JSON. The JSON is like this. So now what happens is first we fetch the API and we wait for the response, and then once the response is there, we try to get the JSON data and we wait for the response to get it as a JSON formatted data. And that's now stored into this constant called data. Here now what we can do is we can make sure our data is coming through into a console log, and we'll log the data. So what should happen now is this API should be called, the data should be saved into our constant for data, and now we're logging it. But it still will not work because we haven't really tied it up to our question card. Where is it? In our app.tsx, our question card component, we haven't really linked the API to this component yet. So let's just, for now, we'll comment this. So we comment this out, and now try. So let's, we also want to, so the UI is showing now because the question card components had the issue. We commented it out. Now what we want to do is the function that we built here, the fetch questions function, we want to call that in our app component. So here we want to import. It was fetch questions, and we also created the difficulty, difficulty, and we want to get this from the API. So now that stuff has been imported. Now what we can do is we can log this data can do it anywhere really. Let's just do it here. So we can do console log. Oops. Log, and we want to run this function. So fetch questions, and here again you see the benefit of having TypeScript. It says you need to give it these two values. So the amount of questions we want to get, so we have that already in this constant, so we'll call total questions. That's our first argument. And then the second argument, it also wants the difficulty. So that will use using this difficulty enum. So it'll be difficulty dot, and then this gives you all the different values that are possible. So we'll just stick with easy. So now we have called the API through the fetch questions function, and we are logging that data here. So let's come back. Let's get the inspect console. Let's refresh this thing. Right, so here we can see what we have. Okay, so we haven't really set this up yet, but here we have the array, and we're getting the data from the API now. So we're getting 10 questions that we asked for. And then within each question, we can see what data is coming through in the JSON. So we have category, correct answer, difficulty, the incorrect answer. Okay, so these are both stored separately. They aren't keeping correct and incorrect answers all in one array. They've separated them out, and then the question text, and then the type of question. So all of this will be coming in handy now that we have all of this data. Now what we do is we want to start using the API data with our question card component. So what we have to do though first, in our API, we want to set the type for the questions. So we'll export the type for the question. Right. And here what we want to do is for each of these different properties in our array, we want to set the type. So we have category, and then category is a string. We have correct answer, string. We have difficulty, string. We have incorrect answers. Incorrect answers is an array of strings. So it'll be array of strings. Then we have the question, which is a string. And we have a type, which is also a string. So this gives us the types for each property in our array. What happened? 1421. Oh, sorry. We want to set the value. So there we go. Now we have the type for each of the attributes, for each of the properties in our array. We have the types specified now. So now what we want to do is the issue I mentioned before, the correct answer and the incorrect answers, they're stored separately, but we need them to be together in order to do this kind of UI, to show them all together. So for this now, what we want to do is we want to create a new object basically, which will combine the two answers into one. So for this, we'll do export type question, just any name really, question state equals. Now inside of this, we want to use the existing question we have, and we want to combine it. We want to add another property inside of it for the answers, which will have all the answers. So answers, and this will be a string, an array of strings. That I should. There we go. So now we have all of these, all of the properties from our question, and we have added a new property which will take the correct answer and the incorrect answers and store them into one array. Now, okay, so let's go back to our app.ts. No, I mean, sorry, API. And here in our fetch questions, before we were logging the data. Now let's start to use the data and actually return it. So we want to return the JSON data with this format, which would include all of the properties from the API plus the new property which adds the answers, correct and incorrect answers into one array for each question. So okay, so here we'll return. And when we return it, what we want to do is we want to map over the data, map over the results. So data.results.map. And then inside of the map, what we want to do is for each question, I want to set the type here, and then arrow function, parentheses, open the parentheses, enter, and now here we want to create the object we're returning, this one. So what we want to do is we want to get everything from the question, and we want to add the answers, right? Like this. And now how do we add the answers? We could just have the correct answer plus the incorrect answers in array concatenation, but what the issue would happen is every time you would have the correct answer would be the first choice, so that wouldn't really be fun because the user would just select the first choice every time. So we want to shuffle the answers. Now to shuffle the answers, what we want to do is create another function to shuffle these correct and incorrect answers. So what we can do is we'll create another file for utilities. And then inside the utilities file, we'll create a function to shuffle the data in an array. So here we'll do export constant shuffle array. So we're basically just creating a function to shuffle the contents of an array. And to do this, we're going to get the array, and it can be a type of any array. And then I'm going to call a arrow function. And inside of this, what we want to do is we want to get the existing array So we'll use the spread operator, get the existing array, and we want to sort it. Sort it, and then as we sort it, we want to randomize the sort. So we'll do math.random and do like a minus operation here. Did I miss something?
Math.random is a method.
Yes, so I need a parentheses. Take care of it. Array, any.
Because the thing is, in dot sort, you are not starting the function because those round brackets are for the sort, not the function
Yes.
starting.
I need another one. And then this one is left now. What's going on? Array, any. So we have a simple function to sort the contents of an array randomly as possible for this. So now we can go back into our API file where we're returning the data. So what we wanted to do was have the incorrect answers and the correct answers and then just shuffle them up so it's not in the same order every time. So what we can do is here do import shuffle array from dot utilities. So now we've imported the shuffle array function. Now what we want to do is use it to shuffle the contents of the incorrect and correct answers array. So what we'll do is first let's build the array. So dot dot dot. This is going to be from our question dot incorrect answers. So this will get the data from our questions object. We saw it's gone. We saw that there was an array of all the incorrect answers, and
Adil, could you specify what this three dots do? What do these three dots do?
It's a spread operator, so it's just getting the existing data and creating a new array using this. Okay, and then incorrect answers, and then we're going to combine this with the correct answer. So question dot correct answer, like this. So now we've created a new array. So this is the problem that we had, because this isn't going to be shuffled. So now we'll shuffle this thing. Shuffle array. We'll shuffle this. So now what's going to happen is every time, first we created the array, so incorrect answers and the correct answer is going to be there, and then it'll be shuffled. So now let's see. Okay. No more errors here. Okay, so what we want to do now, we've passed the data, we've shuffled all the questions. So we're really done with this. Now what we want to do is we want to get this question data back into our app component and then start displaying the data. So let's come back to our app component. And here we'll import in our question state. This question state, if you come back, this is our new array which has all of the data plus the updated questions with the shuffled answers. So we've imported the question state. Now what we want to do is define the type for the question use state hook using the question state object. So we had left this as an empty array before. So here now what we want to do is give this a type, and we want to give this the type from the question state. Question state. This. And we'll do a similar thing for the answers, for the user's answers, but we need an object which will have all the types. So let's create another type object here. So for the answer, and then here what we want to do is for each of the different properties that would be there, we want to give them types. So first we have the question itself, which is a string. Then we have the answer, the string. We have the correct, and which is a Boolean. Then we have the correct answer, which is a string. So just the type for each. We'll need this when we're verifying if it's the correct answer selected or not. And then we'll use the type here. So answer object. This. Now what we want to do is make sure it's working. What happened? Okay, I think once I pass the data, it'll be fine. Okay, so question state. What have I missed? Const use state. Oh, I have to give this a. This is an array. This is also an array. There we go. So these are arrays of the question state and the answer object. That's the type we're using. There we go. Now it's back to normal. Refresh it just to make sure. Okay. Now what we want to do is start to use the begin quiz functionality. So if we click on begin quiz, we start to execute the begin quiz function. So we had created the begin quiz function, but we hadn't really done anything with it. It was just there standalone. Now let's start putting some logic into it. So as soon as somebody clicks on the begin quiz button, what needs to happen is we need to set the state to make it so it's set to loading. So we'll use the set loading function and we'll set this to true. So it was initially false. So as soon as we hit the begin quiz button, now we're going to start loading the data. So we're updating the state to true. And then also now that the game has begun, the quiz has begun, we want to set that the game over, which was initially set to true, we want to set this to false now. So set game over, set false, because now the quiz is in progress. Next, what we want to do is we want to create a new constant to get the new questions from the fetch questions function. So we'll get a constant for the new questions. And these new questions are going to be coming from the API call. So we'll wait for that response. So we'll do a wait, and then what we're going to do is we're going to call this function the fetch questions, and then fetch questions takes in, oops, what happened? Fetch questions takes in two arguments, the amount of questions and the difficulty. So the amount of questions is the total questions, and the difficulty is the difficulty dot, set it to easy. So this now will have all of our questions fetched from the API. Then we want to update the state with the set questions hook using the new questions constant. So we've fetched the data, but we haven't really updated the state, right? So now we can update the state using set questions, and we'll give it the new questions data. So now it's going to set the state using the data fetched here. Then we want to set the score to 0. It's already set to 0, but what if you had started a quiz, finished it, and you had some score? So that score would be left behind. So now what we want to do is set the score back to 0. So this will be set back to 0 using the set score function. And then same thing with the user's answers. We want to get rid of all the previously saved users answers. So we'll do set user answers, and we'll set this back to a empty array. So this will reset the answers that the user has selected. Also, we created the number to figure out which number we're on. So we'll do set number, and we'll set that back to 0. Is the initial value as well. So all of this stuff is done. We've fetched the questions as well. So at the end of this, we'll set loading back to false, because the loading stage is completed. And then let's go and check here. Fine. Yeah. Okay. And then let's log out all of these. Let's get rid of this. Instead of console logging and getting the data from the API, let's console log and get the data from the questions, which is our state. So questions. Let's refresh. Oh yeah, so as soon as I click the begin quiz, it will give the data from my state. So now I have all of these 10 questions saved in my state, in my questions, state hook. Okay, so that's that. Now what we want to do is we want to set some conditional displaying. So let's come down and say in our display, right now we're displaying everything, and that's not really what we want. So what we want is the button to show that the quiz has to begin the quiz. That should only be displayed when the game over is set to true. because the quiz is completed, or if the user has completed all the questions. So what we'll do is we'll create something like this. And what we want to do is check if game is over, or if the user answers dot length. So this is the length of the array of the user's answers is equal to the total questions. So total questions was 10. If the user has answered 10 questions, then the quiz is completed. And if either of these are true, then if it's true, then we want to show this button. And if it's not true, then we want to show nothing. So like this. So if you come here, as soon as we hit begin, the begin button will be gone. Then next we have the score. So the score we want to show. So the logic for the score would be that if the game is still ongoing, so if the person is still taking the quiz, we still want to show the score. If the quiz is done, then we don't want to show the score. So for this, we'll check to see if game over is false, basically. Then we want to display this paragraph. This if it's not true, then null. This next, the loading paragraph. If the data is loading, then we want to show this. If it's not loading, then we don't want to show the loading text. So here in our condition, we'll say if it's loading, then show this paragraph. If it's not loading, then null. So this way, it goes away. When I hit the begin, it shows loading and then it goes away. And then the last one is for the question card. Actually, the second to last one, the question card. In the question card now, we have some logic here as well. So for this, what we want to show is if we're not loading and if the game is not over, then we'll show the question card. So if we're not loading and if it's not game over, then we want to show this. Otherwise, it's null. Right? And then the last one is our next question button. So this one has more logic. There's a couple of different cases. So one, if the game isn't over, if somebody's still taking the quiz, then the next button should be available. So if game not over, game not over, and if we're not loading, so not loading, and if the user answers dot length is equal to number plus 1, so what is this? This means the number plus 1. Number comes from our state. So we're getting number plus 1. And we're basically checking if the users, the number of answers the user has provided is equal to the number of questions that we're on plus 1. So basically, if we've hit 10 questions already, and if the number is not equal to the total questions. And because number starts at 0, we have to do -1. Like this. Extra logic here. And now we've done this. You want to have the ternary operator. If it's true, we show the button. If it's not true, then we don't show anything. This. There we go. So we have only the begin quiz button. As soon as we click on it, we'll have the score and we'll have the loading. And as soon as the question is loaded, we'll have the question displayed and the answers. Where are we on time?
We have 15-20 minutes. Let's just complete the next button and then finish it off. Or we'll do it next week.
Maybe we should just stop. Yeah, we should stop and do the next one, and then we can do the style components as well. So yeah, so the questions are there. So all we have to do now is next time what we'll do is whenever we click on one of the buttons, it'll check to see if the answer is correct. And then it'll show that and then also display the next button. And then if you click on that, then it'll switch to the next question.
Okay. See all of you next in the next class, which will be on Tuesday at 10 p.m.
Yep.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Zeeshan, Adil, you did a marvelous job. And I got to learn a lot of things from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.